Welcome to Spoil Your Appetite. I am Tristan. Alrighty. Let's do this, man. Let's do this. It's, got everything to record this podcast. I got my Coke and rum here right now in my red little cup with some ice. Ready to talk about some things and whatnot. Just a couple things. But, hey, what have I been up to lately? What have I been watching or playing lately? Well, as you guys know from last week, I told you all about how I'm watching Season 1 of Titans with a friend, because as you know, he got both seasons on Blu-ray for free, and he's like, I'm going to go watch these or whatever, you should come and watch them with me. I'm like, no, I don't want to. And then he just knew that it'd be even more fun to watch the show with me, and, you know, yeah, we God, what episode are we on? We left off with the, last episode I watched was with the Doom Patrol, and God, I want to say it was episode 6 or so, and so, yeah, we're almost close to being done with the show, and, yeah, it's a chore, and how do I feel about now, rewatching it again? You know, it's, I don't know. I mean, it's still very much the same feeling I got when I first watched it. And now, watching 2 episodes, you know, every time I go over to my friend's house and watch it with him, watching 2 episodes at a time. And, yeah, just watching this, it's just like, everything is very, like, picking up and just going and going. And, yeah, man, it's just not, I don't know, the writing's not there for me, and, you know, again, the only thing I like is everything that deals with Starfire, and her having to come up with, you know, trying to figure out who she is, or whatever, and she knows she's connected to Raven somehow. She's been there to either, you know, go with Rachel and all that business and stuff like that. So yeah, there's that, and you know, also, so after we're done with that, I watch him play some Arkham City, and yeah, because he's never played Arkham City, and man, it's a chore. It's a chore to watch him, and it's just like, this is not, you know, I mean, he's starting out, he's trying, and, but he's failing miserably, but hey, I'm just there to guide him or whatever, because if I really wanted to, would have beaten half the game or whatever for him and whatnot. But yeah, that's what I've been doing. Then today, what did I do today? Basically slept, just ate some stuff. But I did watch a movie today. I watched a movie today, and you know, it's not part of my topics or whatever, but you know, I'm just catching you guys up on what I've been doing lately. And lately, I think like an hour ago, I finished watching Dr. Sleep, that the director's cut on HBO Max, because I believe as of the 28th, which is today, it's not going to be on HBO Max, and I've been wanting to watch it mainly because it's a sequel to The Shining. Now, it's Stephen King. And personally for me, never read the novels. I don't even think I've ever read a Stephen King book, honestly. I've never read them. I've only been introduced to his movies or whatever. I think the only Stephen King movie I can recall that I've seen is The Shining, and that's it. So, yeah, no, I'm sorry. I've seen both It movies. So there's that. And yeah, I'm not sure why I went to go see It, honestly. Not sure what drew me to It Chapter 1, but, you know, dug those movies. But, yeah, The Shining was the first Stephen King adapted into a movie, which I saw, and, you know, it's easily, like many horror fans, it's one of my favorite horror movies of all time, and, you know, the fact that there is a sequel to that movie is interesting. I remember hearing about it, and then, you know, Ian McGregor's playing Danny Torrance, and it's like, oh, okay, cool. And then I saw the marketing, and then I guess it just, I guess I just never had the time to watch it until, just an hour ago, finishing it. Yeah, man, this movie is one of those examples of doing a sequel to a movie decades later that's done right, We've had, what other movies can I give a good example? Blade Runner 2049 comes to mind. I felt like the sequel to Blade Runner 2049 was very much, was worthy as a sequel. Like, it very much felt like, yeah, you're expanding on the Blade Runner world and whatnot. And so, with Dr. Sleep, it's very much, it's, for those that don't know, for the longest time, since the very beginning, Stephen King was not a fan of Stanley Kubrick's adaptation of his book The Shining, but as time passed on, many people love it, and it's regarded as one of the best horror movies of all time. And it's a big, tall order to do a sequel to one of the greatest horror movies of all time, and so it's a tall order. And I know there's going to be hardcore fans who are against it. I mean, for me, I'm willing to give anything a shot, especially if, the marketing is good or whatever. Like, if the marketing can draw me into it, I'll definitely check it out. And, having finishing it, or at least the director's cut, I really enjoyed it. I really dug it a lot. Ian McGregor as Danny Torrance was such a good casting, honestly. I mean, Ian McGregor is pretty much, well, as far as everything that I've seen him in, he's pretty great. He's a great performer, and I love him in almost everything he's done. I've never really seen him in anything that I haven't been turned off from, honestly. And, him as Danny Torrance, who is just great. The movie is basically about Ian McGregor as Danny Torrance as an adult suffering with, the trauma that came from his childhood when his father tried to murder him and whatnot, and his mother at the time. And so now we're looking at an older Danny who is just very much dealing with that trauma and, staying low, not really giving into his shining, aka his power, but they call it his shining because that's his power. And, while in the midst of it, there's this group of people who are basically taking the essence of the shining powers from, like, basically kids who have some sort of shining power, and is taking it for them to survive and be immortal. What was the line? That's Rosie the Hat, or is that it? Rosie the Hat is the main villain. I believe Rosie the Hat is the main villain. I really need to plug up. Should be more prepared from now on. But yeah, Rebecca Ferguson plays the main villain, and yep, Rose the Hat. So she basically leads this gang of people who are trying to grab essence from these kids that they find and, murder them. Basically take their essence to, live long, eat well, and whatnot. Just to live on forever and ever. And, and then there's this other main kid who is basically, her power is she's a looker. Apparently she can look, or, basically find people, or, look at people from far distance or whatever, and she has this power. And yeah, it's very good. I really dug it a lot. And so her first, interaction with someone who has the shining is basically Danny Torrance. And Danny Torrance at this point is trying to deal with the trauma, but at the same time he's trying to get clean, and he's doing well getting clean, and while also talking to this girl through basically writing messages on a wall. And it's very good. I think there's a lot to love about this movie. First things first, seeing more of the villains and, just seeing where they're coming from and their evil doings and them just trying to survive, trying to find their next victim so they can get this essence to breathe in so they can live longer and whatnot. And, how they recruit their people. I mean, they recruited someone in the very first act of the movie where this person can basically tell anybody what to do and whatnot, and you see that, and they basically have to have her inhale some shining. Basically, it kills her, and then, she's brought back, and she basically can stay that age for as long as she wants and whatnot. And so, it's really great. It's really good. I like seeing that perspective on it. I also love that, this movie isn't very flashy, Generally, when they do sequels to movies from, decades ago, they want to try and do it over the top and be flashy about it without trying to get us to care about the characters that, in this movie and whatnot. And I felt they did a great, service to the characters in it, especially Danny Torrance, who is suffering, it's getting clean, and, there is this 8-year period where we see Danny who's clean and whatnot, and basically is doing better. He has a job, he has a stable, and also talking to this girl. And then, shit does hit the fan when the girl sees this group, the main antagonist, basically killing this boy, which is horrific as hell. I mean, it's just that whole sequence was just chilling to the bone, and I felt uncomfortable. And that's the thing about this movie. It's scary / disturbing. It's just it's very disturbing on many levels, and you just feel icky watching this at times, and it's very unsettling. And it's definitely not one of those horror movies that tries and does jump scares and relies on the scares and whatnot. No, it's about the characters, and I really dug that about this movie a lot. And I think one of my favorite moments from the movie is when Rebecca Ferguson is looking for the main kid, who is looking for... Her name is Abra. Basically, Abra sees Rose the Hat and her people killing this kid or whatever, and Rose the Hat senses Abra, and so basically Rose the Hat is basically we gotta find her, and we gotta basically drain her, but not kill her, just drain her essence to stay as long as we can. And it's really great. And so there's a sequence where Rose the Hat goes looking for her, not physically, but mentally, sort of like a out-of-body experience. I'm not sure what the word is called, but you know what I'm talking about. Goes to find Abra. She finds her, and when it comes to these people with the shining or whatever, they can basically, I believe, when they basically can see all these ghosts or whatever, they can basically have them be locked up, all these traumas or whatever. They can lock them up in these, they're basically their own box. Whether, for example, Abra has basically file cabinets of stuff she locks up, whereas with Danny, he has suitcases and all the ghosts that he's locked away in that essence in those. And so Rose the Hat finds Abra, and she goes looking through the file cabinets of, I guess, the memories and the ghosts she probably locked up, and Abra basically trapped her there for a second. It was a trap for Rose the Hat, and there's a moment where she gets her hand stuck in the file cabinet, and Rose the Hat pulls her hand off, and you see the skin coming off her hand, and oh my god, it's brutal and gruesome, man. Little moments like that just really gets you, honestly, and I really liked it. Now, I mean, and what's also great is we see more of the backstory when it comes to Danny they show more of the backstory with Danny. What happened after the hotel, Basically, we get a little flashback as him as a kid and coming into power with his shine and whatnot. And it's great stuff like that. And the last third act does deal with, very amazingly in the movie, Danny and Abra team up, and Danny brings a friend over who basically gave him a job to take out the group, Rose the Hat's group or whatever, and it's very great till it leads to, it's just Rose and Abra and Danny. And so Danny is like, we're gonna, basically go to Colorado, and the whole last sequence is in that hotel from the first movie, and it's great. I mean, Chris Stuckman said it best. I mean, there's a certain type of fan service. Fan service can be good if you do it the right way. And, with Dr. Sleep, I felt like they did it the right way. They gave you these first two acts of just this building of the characters and this tension between, Rose the Hat and her people against, Abra and Danny. But more of like that more happens in the second act. But, it's just this building, getting you to care about these characters, that then you get the big payoff where the big showdown happens between Danny, Abra, and Rose the Hat, and it's great. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and of course the callbacks are there, and it's really great. I really dug it a lot. And yeah, Mike Flanagan, who directed and wrote the screenplay for this, just does a fantastic job with it. I mean, I don't know if he was allowed to, basically have all the creative control or whatever, but man, he did a sweet job taking care of just doing the sequel and just honoring what came beforehand and just continuing the story and not trying to go into that trope of like, hey guys, this is the Shining sequel or whatever, And so it was really great, and I really thoroughly enjoyed it. And it wasn't until today that I learned that Mike Flanagan was involved with one of my, another favorite horror movie of mine, which is Hush, which is now on Netflix. And, Hush is about basically about a girl who's deaf trying to defend herself against a guy who's trying to come into her house and kill her and whatnot. So the fact that he was a part of that just makes me feel like I think I need to start watching more of Mike Flanagan stuff. And yeah, man, Dr. Sleep, I really enjoyed it. There's a lot to love about it, whether it's, the performance from Ian McGregor or Rebecca Ferguson as Rose the Hat, or the little girl that played Abra, and it's just phenomenal. And what's also phenomenal was the fact that, I imagine it would have... I'm so glad they didn't go with the CGIing the, what's it called? Danny's mother and dad, because, I imagine they had to do, like, a young Jack Nicholson. That would have, with CGI, that would have taken a lot of money. But I love the fact that, at the end of the day, they recasted it, and I'm sure, some people are not going to like that, but for me personally, I just felt like it's more about the character more so than who's playing the character. Like, I mean, yeah, the girl, the actress that they got who plays the Danny's mom looks almost exactly like the actress from The Shining, and it's, and they do show the dad, he's in it actually, and they recasted it, and I thought he did a great job as well. And so, yeah, man, Dr. Sleep was really good. I really dug it a lot. So, yeah, that's my quick thoughts on Dr. Sleep for you. So yeah, let's get to the news, shall we? Because that's all I did since I last was on here recording. Let's talk about just a few things I have on here, honestly. And the first one being the Army of the Dead trailer has a teaser trailer. Coming from Zack Snyder, this is going to debut on Netflix, and we got a teaser look at it, and, you know, it's a teaser. There's really not much going on. So it's basically a zombie apocalypse happening in Las Vegas. And yeah, there's not much to talk about, honestly. There's just a lot of cool shit. Just seeing zombies and a lot of action. And yeah, I'll check it out because, you know, I want to see what Zack Snyder does when he's not adapting property. Because it seems like, you know, the only original films that he hasn't adapted that aren't adapted are the Owl movie, and then Sucker Punch, and then, yeah, that's pretty much it. Because everything else he's done is basically purely adapted, with 300, Watchmen, the DC movies, the Dawn of the Dead remake or whatever. So yeah, I'm very curious to see what he does outside of adapted material. So yeah, I'm looking forward to watching this because I'm just curious to see what Zack Snyder does outside of adapted material. But yeah, but overall, there's really nothing to there's really nothing much to say about that teaser trailer because it's not a trailer. So once we get another trailer, there's probably more to talk about it. But yeah, that's just kind of my quick take on it. So the creators of Avatar want to expand the universe. Avatar: The Last Airbender, that is, not the James Cameron Avatar movies. So the creators of Avatar: The Last Airbender want to expand the universe with more spin-off shows and another Avatar: The Last Airbender animated movie, which is like, okay, because, famously, we saw that they basically just left the project for Netflix's Avatar: The Last Airbender. So it's like, okay, I guess this is what they're going to do. And I think they even set up a studio, which, okay. At first I'm like, I guess. But the more I thought about it, the more I'm like, you know what? This does kind of sound like an interesting idea. Because you could tell so many stories. You could tell so many stories. Now, I watched Avatar: The Last Airbender. There's a lot you could really tell. I haven't seen Legend of Korra, but I remember just thinking, you could tell, probably the stories of any of the previous avatars before Aang ever came to be and whatnot. Or you could, basically tell the story of the Fire Nation rising to power or whatever, and how they basically took control, all that stuff, and just became the dominant, what's it called? Yeah. You know what I mean. So the Fire Nation come to power, or the origins of how, who was the first person to wield, either airbending, firebending, waterbending, earthbending, all that. You could tell a story of that. You could tell, any story. Like, you could really go anywhere in the Avatar universe. And, I'm kind of fascinated by it all. I'm also fascinated about this animated movie that they're going to make, which is like, okay, is it going to be the retelling of Avatar: The Last Airbender? Probably not, but, I'm curious about it. You could also tell, some sort of story of, because I know The Legend of Korra takes 80 years after Avatar: The Last Airbender. Maybe they could tell a story of, like, adult Aang as the Avatar becoming, restoring order, helping out, and whatnot, and fighting whatever threats he needs to fight. Or better yet, you could give Zuko a spin-off story where he's going out to find his mother and whatnot. Stuff like that. I wouldn't mind it. I'm for it. They want to expand the universe. Yeah, tell any story. It's kind of like, there's so much that, we see in Avatar: The Last Airbender that, man, the mythology alone, it's like you can go anywhere in it. It's like Star Wars. Like, with Star Wars, you can go anywhere. It doesn't have to be about the Skywalkers. And in this instance, with Avatar: The Last Airbender, it doesn't have to be about Aang and the gang. But if they wanted to, they could tell some sort of story like that, or they could just go off and tell their own story. And so, yeah, I'm very curious about that. I want to see what they do with it, and I wish them the best of luck. And yeah, I'm very curious to see how that all goes, honestly. Now, let's talk about some Superman news, shall we? Let's talk about the Superman reboot. So, it's being reported Superman is being rebooted from J.J. Abrams is producing, and let me get the writer real quick. Somebody is penning the script, and he is supposedly he's a award winner, basically. Ta-Nehisi is basically going to write the Superman reboot. It's also being reported that this Superman might be the Black Superman. Now, whether it's going to be, basically having Kal-El as Kal-El Black, or if they're going to do Val-Zod / Calvin, what's his last name? Calvin something. I can't remember him. Val-Zod as he's called, but let me see. I'm trying to look this up because it's really hard. But yeah, there's two Black Superman actually, and I never really read any of those stories, honestly. But who knows what this is going to be, basically. I don't know if it's going to be basically Calvin Ellis is what the Black Superman from Earth 2, I believe. And I know there's another Black Superman, I can't remember his name. Again, I haven't read these stories at all. So if that's what they're going to do, or they're just going to basically make Kal-El Black, okay, fine. Of course, my first instinct is like, Superman reboot? Alright, better have Henry Cavill back. Because, if it's a reboot, okay, you could still have Henry Cavill, if you wanted to, basically. Because, let's look at the Halloween movies. You could basically do what certain franchises are doing and basically just, doing a sequel while doing a reboot. I don't know. I don't know what they're doing, but just do that, because I would love to see Henry Cavill back as Superman. It's been 8 years since we've had any news on a Superman movie in general, and so for the longest time I thought it's probably going to be a while before we see Superman on the big screen. But since this is in the news, yeah, I want Henry Cavill back, but at the same time I'm like, if it's not Henry Cavill, oh well. I'm gonna be upset just for a second, but other than that, I'll get over it, honestly, because at this point it's been 8 years since Man of Steel. We've seen Superman, Henry Cavill as Superman in Batman v Superman and in Justice League, and that's about it. And it's just this year after year after year after year, not having any news on a Superman movie. I'm just like, that need of a sequel to Man of Steel has just died out for me. I don't care anymore. I want Henry Cavill to be back, but if not, okay, because at this point I'm just like, what, kind of tired of hoping to see Henry Cavill back as Superman, because it's been so long, and it's like, what, you do whatever you want. You want to reboot Superman? Alright, go for it. It is what it is. I still have Man of Steel, and I'm always going to love Man of Steel. And, yeah, it's a bummer, but at the same time, I've given up on the idea of seeing Henry Cavill coming back as Superman. I'm just like, you know what? It is what it is. And if there's any teeny tiny hope that he's coming back, great. But at the same time, there's not enough hope for me to be like, yes, I'm ready to see it. There's not enough energy or excitement or whatever. I'll be excited when they announce, yeah, we're bringing Henry Cavill back as Superman. Like, that's when I'll get excited. But until then, I'm not going to play this, is he or is he not kind of game. I'm just like, okay, if they're going to reboot it, fine. I've been here before. I've seen so many iterations of Batman. I've read so many comics, and, there's been different writers for Batman, and I've read those stories, so I'm not upset about it. And so this whole reboot Superman, it's like, okay, but if you want to tell, you want to make Superman black, all right, fine, go for it. I'm curious. Like, show me what you got. Like, I would love to see it. Like, is it going to be like I said, will it be Kal-El, or is it going to be actually those two Superman from those different Earths or whatever? Like, kind of curious. I mean, at the same time, it's like I kind of would. Now that I'm talking about it, it's like I kind of would love to see an Earth 2 sort of DC universe kind of deal, I'd love to see, a black Superman and, all those characters, all those different versions of those characters on a different Earth that, the average person isn't, familiar with. So, yeah, as a fan, I'm just like, that does kind of sound interesting. Like, an Earth 2 sort of DC cinematic universe. I think I just convinced myself that if they wanted to do this, hell yeah, do that. Like, I mean, I don't know. I mean, are all the main superheroes on Earth 2 black? Because, yeah, why not? I mean, what's their story? Or, I don't know if Earth 2 is the Flashpoint Batman, but, I mean, if he is, then, oh man, Thomas Wayne Batman teaming up with Calvin Ellis, who is apparently Val Zod, and I guess Val Zod is his father is Zod. So, yeah, man, you know what? I just convinced myself. If that's where they're going with this, yeah, I do want to see that now. I really do want to see that now. That's pretty awesome. Yeah, man. Just the things you could do and not have to, seeing those stories bring to the big screen and not the typical Kal-El Superman stories, whatnot. Yeah, I would like that. I would actually like that, to be honest. So yeah, I say, if that's what we're getting, Earth 2 DC Cinematic Universe, hell yeah, bring that on. So yeah, I think, now I'm excited for this reboot. So yeah, but yeah, that's kind of how I feel about it. Now let's continue on by talking about Superman, and that is, let's talk about the Superman and Lois CW pilot premiere episode. Man, all I can say is, where do I even begin? I don't know where to start, honestly. I really don't. Now, for me, seeing Tyler Hoechlin as Superman on Supergirl, I like him as, Superman. He's very much got that, he's very much reminds me of the Boy Scout Superman, good-looking Superman doing his, doing the right thing, having no struggle at all. And, he's vastly different from Henry Cavill Superman, obviously. So, the fact that he's getting that iteration is getting a CW show is like, okay, so we're bringing Superman back on the small screen. That's pretty neat, I guess. And, it's coming to the CW, and, I mean, look, lately, I don't know, CW, DC shows these days, I'm just like, I'm kind of starting to fall out of them. I mean, I'm still going to watch Flash, Legends, and now Superman and Lois, and Black Lightning, which Black Lightning is on its last season, unfortunately. And that's it. I don't think I want to start any of the new shows. I mean, I don't even know if I want to give Wonder Girl a shot, because I'm just like, I don't know. But I will say this. I'll give it 3 episodes. And if it's anything like Superman and Lois, yeah, I'll probably still keep around. But, let's talk about Superman and Lois. I was not surprised how different it was going to be. I was not surprised. Because, we saw the trailer, and judging from that trailer, I got the sense that this is going to be different. And upon, finishing the pilot episode, I was not expecting it to be so vastly different from previous CW DC shows. Because of one simple factor, and that is the story structure. The story structure we haven't seen this before. It's very different from the other DC CW shows. In the sense of like, okay, if you've never seen a CW DC show, it breaks down like this for those shows. They have a problem. So the hero has a problem. Problem gets introduced, hero goes and faces that problem, gets his ass kicked. Okay, gotta hold back, gotta find out what's the weakness, how do we defeat this character or whatever. And then the big final act is we beat the character, and yay, we save the day. And then and so on and so on. That's basically how all that story structures for the DCCW shows. And really, you could kind of apply that for all their shows, honestly. But with this one, not the case at all. It very much felt like, there's just this narrative that they're just telling or whatever. And what's even more incredible is like, we don't see Superman in the suit as much. We see him in the very beginning and, at the very end. And that's pretty much it. Which is interesting. The whole time, it basically takes on the Kent farm, because in the episode, and I'm going to give spoilers, so sorry, but so in the beginning, we get the montage. We get the, this narration by Clark Kent, Kal-El, basically tell him his upbringing and whatnot, so much so that we see the very first, we see his iconic first look costume from the comics, and it's great. I love that little nod, and, I remember seeing a screenshot and thinking, oh, so they're just basically going to say, he's been here for that long, maybe? I don't know, but no, not the case at all. It's definitely in modern times. But yeah, the main episode, this episode is just mainly about, basically takes place on Clark Kent's, the Kent farm. And because, not only has Jonathan passed away when Clark was a kid, but as an adult, Martha Kent passes away. And, Martha Kent's intention was always to give the farm to Clark. And, there's just this sense of like, okay, are they going to keep it or are they going to give it to the bank? And sure enough, they're going to keep it. And, it was just so interesting to see just more talking about, how much Clark doesn't come to Smallville and whatnot. Because, the people of Smallville think he looks down on Smallville and all this stuff and whatnot. It's basically, Smallville is basically the countryside of the world. While, him living in Metropolis with his boys, his teenagers are, living in Metropolis, the big city. And so, yeah, stuff like that. It's pretty interesting. I love that it's just these little moments where it's like, it's not relying on the spectacular or whatever. It's really great. I really like these smaller moments and whatnot. It's not punching, smashy, or whatever. I think Tyler Hoechlin as Kal-El was pretty great. I mean, I really like him as Superman as well as Henry Cavill. And then the girl that plays Lois, I'm forgetting her name, and I'm so sorry that I'm forgetting it, but she's great too. I really dig her a lot, and, just seeing Kal-El as a dad, I love that. I love seeing something new with that. It's like, okay, you're going to do Superman as a show. What are you going to bring to the table that's new and refreshing? And, he's a dad. He's got teenagers. Now, what's also interesting about this pilot is, they don't really reference any of the CW events, like Crisis or anything like that. It's very interesting. And from what I remember from Crisis, his boys were basically babies, and now they're teenagers, and maybe that's because of Crisis or whatever. But, yeah. So he's got 2 teenagers, Jonathan and Jordan. Jonathan being the perfect son or whatever, no problems, no issues. And then Jordan, who suffers with social anxieties and whatnot. And the fact that he's the one that gets the powers is just oh, dude, I love it. I love these 2 actors playing the sons. I think they're great. And I like the fact that, as of now at least, there's only one that has superpowers. And so I can't wait. And just, the fact that Kal-El never told his sons about, that he's Superman. It's just just that fear that Kal-El had, just being I don't want them to feel like, they're freaks or whatever and all this business, when in reality Jordan already feels like a freak as is, because, he suffers with anxiety. And I really liked it. There's always going to be drama in these shows, because what's a show without a little drama? But the script alone, and just this whole episode, I just kept thinking to myself, there's no way this is a CW show. This just doesn't feel like a CW show. And so I'm just I am curious to see, more going forward, honestly. And I'll be honest, the thing I didn't like about this episode is the action stuff. Not because it's bad, but I just felt okay, cool, this is cool and all, but let's get back to the family drama or whatever. I like seeing Superman dealing with human stuff or whatever. It's cool, I can see him punch and smash or whatever, or get his ass kicked in this episode, as we see. But I was just not as invested in that as much as I was seeing him trying to socialize with, connect with his son, Jordan, and whatnot. He's very connected with Jonathan, but with Jordan, not so much. And I liked seeing that. I really did like seeing that a lot. And there's a great line I love how Lois is you're a dad, you need to be here more so than being out there as Superman. I love the fact that in that scene, General Lane is basically telling Lois that, you should have known when you married Superman that he's going to have to be Superman because he owes the world everything. And it's just just that duality Cal has to face, on a daily basis, The fact that there's this pressure on him trying to be a dad and whatnot, trying to keep up with his boys and stuff like that, man. It's just, I love that shit. But yeah, the action I could have cared less for. I mean, Captain Luthor, it's okay, alright, whatever, cool, we have our main villain, but I didn't really care about the main villain as much, because I was I love everything else that doesn't deal with the spectacular. Now, granted, the whole cooling down the nuclear power plant, that was cool. I love that sequence a lot. But yeah, another thing I didn't like, I'm not really a fan of the suit. Yeah, I'm not a fan of Superman's suit. It's not so much, it's just more of the costume itself. I love the design. I love the design a lot, but I'm just not a fan of the costume. It very much feels like a costume you would get from a costume store, like a Walmart or a Party City, stuff like that. It looks, as far as, besides the cape, the suit itself, it looks very much very much looks like a Party City costume to me. And, I just would have loved to see more like, the suit pop out, sort of just have that 3D print on it, especially like the Superman crest. Like they could have like slapped on a Superman crest on his chest, instead of it just being part of the suit or whatever, I mean, is it a nitpick? I guess, whatever, but even then, like I said, I love the design, but, just the Party City suit just kind of takes me out of it just a bit, but, I'll get used to it, I'm just, that's kind of surprising too, because I had heard that HBO Max put in a lot of money into this pilot, and it's like, could have just put more money into that costume or whatever, maybe it's just the pilot, and later on the season we'll see it pop more out. I don't know, but yeah, because it's like the CW is very good at making their suits or whatever. I mean, I've never really seen any of the superhero suits that I didn't like. I don't know. They're just I would just like more texture to it. And that's it. That's all I can say about that suit. But yeah, man, the pilot episode, I was very, very surprised by the structure act. Very much felt like it was just, they're just telling a story. They're not worried about the threat or whatever. They're dealing with their family drama. And yeah, man, I was very hooked in. And I can't wait to see more. I am very curious to see what happens next. And I don't know how many episodes there are. I mean, if they're keeping it under 20 or so, or they'll do 17 or something like that, great. But I mean, I just hope that their story structure doesn't fall back to the other CW TV shows or whatever. So, but yeah, those are my thoughts on the Superman Lois pilot episode, and I'm looking forward to more. So I can't wait to see more. And yeah, so that's all I got for this week. So thank you all for listening once again. And if you want to follow me on social media, you can follow me on Twitter at Alexander_Thorpe. There's no E at the end. Or you can follow me on Instagram at Alexander_Thorpe. There's no E at the end again. So yeah, just follow me on Twitter or Instagram. Thank you guys so much for listening. I'm Tristan, and you've just been spoiled.